Hello, everybody. Let me start by sharing my screen with you because then you will immediately see why I'm the only presenter of the paper here, while in fact there are two authors. My co-author, Anna Chesnokova, as you can see on the slide, resides in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, which is now again on a daily basis bombarded by the Russian army with rockets, artillery, missiles, you name it, all to the vanity of Mr. Putin. Now, you may imagine that under such circumstances, it was impossible for Anna to join us at the moment here in presenting or preparing even the presentation of today. You may well imagine that she has other worries than presenting something in Orlando. But let me begin by saying that over the past years, Anna and I have been trying to combine two fields of study, both of which are relevant to the study of literature that traditionally have become or have been rather separate. And our work over the past years has been to try to combine those two fields. What are they? On the one hand, there is a traditional field of poetics, known to all of us, the study of the structures and content and organization of literary texts, in particularly then of poetic texts. And on the other hand, what we always have assumed, namely that those structures, those kinds of organization of literature do have some kind of psychological effects. They have cognitive effects, social effects, emotional effects, attitudinal, behavioral effects, etc. Now, those two things have been very much apart from each other, especially since the 18th century. What we are going to do today is show you one aspect in which we think it is important, we would even say vital, for an empirical study of literature to combine those two fields. And we have given a name to that new kind of enterprise, namely psychopoetics. It's the study of the psychological experiences that people undergo when they are confronted with poetic texts. Now, a first remark here is that traditionally, poetry was intimately tied to music. Poetry was not read originally, and in most cultures, it's like that. It was actually performed, recited orally in public, often by professional singers, like in the case of the Iliad or the Odyssey, accompanied by the singer himself on a lyre or by somebody else providing the music. So literature, poetry was not private, it was public and it was oral. It took place in the gathering of people. It was meant to be recited, to be memorized, and to be enjoyed together with other people. It's only in the late 18th century that people started reading privately to themselves. We argue that it is vital for empirical studies of literature to investigate this oral, public aspect of poetry, the effects of words, rhythm, melody, meter, etc. Now, as a piece of research that we did in that respect, we invite you to listen to the opening of a song by the Mozambique-born Portuguese singer Maritza, who you see here in the picture. She's a traditional singer of fados, and a fado is a traditional kind of urban song in cities like Lisbon or Porto, or especially Coimbra. And what we're going to do now, I'm going to make you listen for a minute and a half to an extract from a song that she sings during a performance in London. The song is called Loucura in Portuguese, which means madness. You'll have the text of what she's singing on the left-hand side of the slide, and you'll see her performing in the right-hand window. Don't worry if you don't understand Portuguese. We'll come to that in a second.
Sou do fado, como sei, vivo poema cantado de fado que eu inventei a falar. Não posso dar, mas foi ela a cantar e as almas sabem escutar. Mas chorei, chorei, poetas do meu país, troncos da mesma raiz, a vida que nos juntou. E se vocês não estivessem a meu lado, não havia fado, nem fadistas como eu sou.
Okay, thank you for watching. Certainly in the Portuguese text, there are some words that you recognize. Of course, the word fado itself, but also poema, a poem, poetas, poets. And we'd like you to have a good look at the first sentence, sou do fado. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on the first thing. That is by which she opens the song, sou do fado. Just a second. Which means I am from Fado, which is in Portuguese, as it would be in English, ungrammatical. You could say I'm from London, I'm from Lisbon, I'm from Sao Paulo, but you can't say I'm from Fado. That's ungrammatical. Because I am from presupposes a kind of place you come from, a town, a country, a region, a continent, whatever. So what she says in her first opening sentence is, I come from a place which is a non-place. I come from, basically, she says, I come from literature or from music, some literary, some musical place. So in a sense, the first sentence with which she opens the song are heavily foregrounded. We stress this because many people in literary studies, they think foregrounding, deviation, parallelism are typical for literature that is written or printed, but it is not. Look at folk traditions. Here you have a clear example. It's full of foregrounding, of deviation and or parallelism. So the song is basically indeed about loucura, about madness, the madness of being a fado singer, of being a poet. It's about the plight of a poet and her emotions, and also consequently the isolation from other people. You can't say I come from this place. No, I as a poet, I have to say I come from poetry. I come from the country of the fados, for which she needs our help and support, because she says, if you are not there at my side, there won't be poems, there won't be fados. And also, there won't be any poets. There won't be any fadistas, the singers of fados. Now, in order to study the effects of such folk songs, which are, in our view, also poetry, we did a little study with the students of Anna at the Boris Grinchenko University in Kiev. And we asked students who didn't know what the song was about, they didn't understand Portuguese, just to listen and to watch the performance as you have just done, and to rate their own feelings when listening and watching the performance, but also to rate the feelings that they would ascribe to the singer. And so to dissociate both of them on a 10-point scale. And these were the 10 emotions that we requested them to rate. Emotions that we thought in general would be typical emotions that would turn up in popular songs, but also in poetry. Now, the first thing you notice here are the bars representing on the left-hand side the emotions that our listeners ascribed to the singer. And on the right-hand side, you see the emotions that they said they experienced themselves. First thing, what you can notice is that some emotions strike one as very salient. Sadness, the purple bars, the green bar, elation or tenderness, they score very high on the 10-point scale. They score above 6. On the other hand, certain bars, like the red one or the yellow one, are very low. These are the emotions shame and fear. So we have already an indication of certain emotions are very much foreground and much more salient in the poem than others. Now let's compare the emotions ascribed to the singer versus the emotions that our respondents said they experienced themselves. And you notice very clear differences. For instance, contempt, the beige color, or sadness, the purple one, and anger, the blue one, they are considerably higher when ascribed to the singer than for the listeners themselves. In other words, listeners said they did not experience much contempt or sadness or anger compared what they thought the singer herself was experiencing. And these differences are, in statistical terms, very significant. Now, as I said before, our participants did not understand Portuguese. So we thought, what if we provide them with a text and a translation in their mother language, which is Ukrainian, of course. You would expect that knowing what it is about would change your perception or certainly your emotional reaction, maybe also the emotions that you ascribe to the singer. So we did the same thing again. We have them first look at the text, Portuguese with translation in Ukrainian. And then we asked them again to rate their own feelings and the feelings they ascribe to the singer. But much to our surprise, there was no difference. There were some slight differences here and there, but most of them not significantly. I listed some of the things, but out of 10 adjectives, a few were significant, most of them were not. The surprising thing is that knowing what Maritza is singing about hardly made any difference in the emotions experienced by our respondents and also in the emotions they ascribe to the singer herself. If we compare now the emotions of our recipients with or without the text, you would again expect differences, but there were hardly any, and none of them are statistically significant. So this is a rather unforeseen result. The performance as such, even without understanding a word of what the singer is saying, is actually saying or singing, overrides the content of what she was singing about. Now, the 10 emotions we presented them with, we had thought of them before, of course. You could actually categorize them in either emotions with a positive or with a negative valence. And this is the kind of division you could make. What we did is, of course, run a Cronbach's alpha to see whether we could actually conflate these individual adjectives or emotional words. And of course, that was possible. So we made new variables. And then what you get is this. The green bars represent the positive emotions or the average response to the positive emotions, both without having had recourse to the text on the left-hand side and with the recourse to the text on the right-hand side. Moreover, as you can see, all the average responses to the conflated emotional words are rather low. They all score below 5 out of the scale of 10. But then look at the blue bars. There is a marked difference between the negative emotions ascribed to the singer or the emotions experienced by the listeners themselves, both without having recourse to the text and after having read and understood the text. And these differences, excuse me, these differences between the negative emotions ascribed to the singer and experienced by the listeners themselves are highly significant, statistically speaking. So it seems to be that we are on track here to find something, what we could call the dual processing of the arts. Arts, I mean visual arts, like the painting you see here on the screen by Edvard Munch, a Norwegian painter. And this painting is, of course, very famous. It's called The Scream. But apart from the visual arts, also including music and poetry. So we can process as spectators the content and the structure and the organization of the picture, the painting, or the musical piece, or a piece of song or poetry. And on the other hand, the emotions that we ourselves experience. Would we have to say that, of course, the painting is a bit eerie. Look at the sky, the river, the bridge, the person screaming. It is called a scream. Why? Is it a scream of fear, of pain, or loneliness? What is it? But in any case, we can ascribe that kind of content or structural or evocation of the object, the painting, and what we think and feel about it. Do we also feel pain or fear when we watch the painting? Or should we say not necessarily? Maybe yes, maybe no. But that's what we mean by the dual processing. We can process the content and the structure of the object of art. And at the same time, we experience this, and there is some kind of difference between both. Or we could say that this is a kind of general paradox of the arts, maybe. Do jolly songs make us exhilarated? Do sad songs make us sad? This turns out not to be the case. In many cases, we even enjoy sad music or sad poetry. And the clearest demonstration comes from music here by a study by a Japanese group of researchers, Kawakami. They had a number of listeners, both professional musicians and non-musicians, listen to 3 pieces of classical music, once in a major key, once in a minor key, and then they had them react to 62 emotion-related descriptive words on a scale. Well, it turns out that there was a clear dissociation between the perceived emotion that people thought was in the music and the emotions that the listeners experienced or said to experience themselves. In the words of Kawakami et al., we may actually feel positive emotions when we listen to sad music. Felt and perceived emotion may not actually coincide in this respect. We think the same goes for visual arts and for poetry. And these results by Kawakami et al., they were not affected by prior musical experience. So there was no difference between the musicians and the non-musicians. And we would like to conclude that this is indeed a paradox. Why is this the case that we would enjoy sad things? Why is this the case? You have our email addresses there. Any volunteers, please contact us, and look forward to our forthcoming book where we explore this paradox in greater depth. Thank you very much.